Young Millionaire went on a blind date as a broke man. He never thought he'd find true love. Liam Carter adjusted the frayed collar of his second-hand shirt, feeling an unfamiliar wave of nerves as he stared at his reflection in the diner's window. He wasn't used to appearing ordinary. But tonight, he wasn't Liam Carter, millionaire tech entrepreneur. Tonight, he was just Liam, a guy with a modest bank account and a borrowed car, going on a blind date set up by his meddling sister, Emma. "This is ridiculous," he muttered under his breath, shaking his head. He could be on a yacht right now, closing a seven-figure deal, but here he was, pretending to be broke, all because of a drunken dare Emma had thrown at him last weekend. "You don't know what it's like to date as a regular guy, Liam," she'd teased. "Try it for once and see if someone likes you for you, not your money." It had struck a nerve. Deep down, Liam had always wondered, did women fall for him, or his bank account? The idea of meeting someone who didn't care about his lifestyle was strangely appealing. Against his better judgment, he'd agreed, and now he was here, about to meet a woman who thought he worked at a hardware store. The bell above the diner door jingled, and Liam's breath caught. A petite brunette walked in, her sunflower yellow dress standing out against the muted tones of the diner. She glanced around nervously before her eyes landed on him. When she smiled, it was warm, genuine, and for the first time all evening he felt his shoulders relax. "Liam," she asked, her voice soft yet confident. "That's me," he replied, standing and offering her a handshake before realizing how formal it seemed. He quickly dropped his hand, feeling like an idiot. "I'm Harper," she said, sitting across from him. "Emma's told me a lot about you." "All good things, don't worry." "She told me a lot about you too," Liam said, though all he knew was that Harper worked as a kindergarten teacher and had a weakness for chocolate chip pancakes. The waitress came over, and Harper immediately ordered a coffee and the aforementioned pancakes, her eyes lighting up as she handed the menu back. Liam found himself smiling at her enthusiasm. "So," Harper said, breaking the silence, "Emma mentioned you work at a hardware store." "Oh, yeah," Liam said, scratching the back of his neck. "It's nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills." "I think that's great," she said, surprising him. "I mean, it must be nice to work with your hands and help people." "My dad owned a small business, so I've always respected hard work." Liam blinked, unprepared for her sincerity. Most women he dated would have brushed off the comment or tried to steer the conversation toward more exciting topics. But Harper seemed genuinely interested. "What about you?" he asked. "Emma said you're a teacher." Harper's face lit up. "I am. Kindergarten, it's exhausting, but I love it. The kids are hilarious, even when they're driving me crazy. Yesterday, one of them tried to convince me that dinosaurs still exist, and honestly, the way he explained it, I almost believed him." Liam chuckled, the sound surprising even himself. He couldn't remember the last time he'd laughed on a first date. As the night went on, their conversation flowed effortlessly. Harper told him about her dream to open a nonprofit for underprivileged kids, and Liam found himself sharing stories from his childhood, the ones that didn't involve private jets or luxury vacations. They bonded over their shared love of classic rock and their mutual disdain for pineapple on pizza. By the time the waitress brought the check, Liam realized he didn't want the night to end. He hadn't felt this comfortable with someone in ever. "I had a really great time," Harper said as they walked out to the parking lot. "Emma was right, you're easy to talk to." "Likewise," Liam said, resisting the urge to ask her out again right then and there. He didn't want to seem too eager. "Can I walk you to your car?" She hesitated, then smiled. "Sure." As they reached her beat-up sedan, Harper turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "You know, I wasn't sure about this whole blind date thing, but I'm glad I came." "Me too," Liam said, his voice soft. For a moment they just stood there, the cool night air swirling around them. Then Harper leaned in and kissed him on the cheek, her lips warm against his skin. "Good night, Liam," she said, slipping into her car before he could respond. Liam stood there, stunned, as her taillights disappeared into the distance. He touched his cheek, a slow smile spreading across his face. For the first time in years, he felt like he'd met someone who saw him not his wealth, not his success, just him. But as he climbed into his borrowed car and drove back to his penthouse, a pang of guilt settled in his chest. What would Harper think when she found out the truth? Because she would find out. Secrets like his always came out eventually. Liam stepped off the elevator into his penthouse, the city lights spilling through the floor-to-ceiling windows and casting a soft glow across the sleek, modern furniture. Normally, the view of the Manhattan skyline filled him with pride, a reminder of how far he'd come from the small town where he grew up. But tonight, it felt hollow. He tossed the borrowed car keys onto the marble countertop and sank onto the couch, running a hand through his hair. Harper's laugh still echoed in his mind, the way her eyes crinkled when she smiled. She was unlike anyone he'd ever met, genuine, warm, and completely uninterested in the kind of lifestyle he usually led. And she thought he was just a guy who worked at a hardware store. Liam leaned his head back, staring at the ceiling. How long could he keep this up? Pretending to be someone he wasn't felt wrong, especially with someone as honest as Harper. But if he told her the truth now, would she think he'd been lying to manipulate her? Would she walk away, like so many others had when they realized they couldn't separate him from his money? The thought of losing her already twisted something deep in his chest, which was ridiculous. He'd only just met her. Shaking his head, Liam stood and headed for the kitchen. He poured himself a glass of scotch and stared out at the city, trying to figure out his next move. The next day, Liam's sister Emma barged into his office without knocking, as usual. She plopped into the chair across from his desk, a wide grin on her face. "So," she began, crossing her arms. "How was the date?" Liam glanced up from his laptop, narrowing his eyes at her. "Do you ever respect boundaries?" "Not when I'm invested," she shot back. "And don't change the subject, spill," he sighed, leaning back in his chair. "It was good." Emma raised an eyebrow. "Good." "That's it, you're not exactly selling it." "It was great, okay," he admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. "She's different. Different how? She's not like the women I usually date." "She's real, she's kind, she doesn't care about flashy stuff or appearances." Emma's grin widened. "Sounds like you actually like her." "Yeah, I do," Liam said quietly. "But there's a problem." Emma frowned, sitting up straighter. "What kind of problem?" "She doesn't know who I really am," he said, meeting her eyes. "She thinks I work at a hardware store." "How am I supposed to tell her the truth now?" Emma tilted her head, considering him. "You have to tell her eventually, Liam, but maybe not right away. Get to know her first. Let her get to know you. If she's as great as you say she is, she'll understand." "And if she doesn't?" he asked, his voice laced with doubt. Emma shrugged. "Then she's not the one." "But you'll never know if you don't try." Liam sighed, knowing she was right. "Fine, I'll give it some time." Emma smiled, satisfied. "Good. Now when's the next date?" "I haven't asked her yet," he admitted. Emma rolled her eyes. "Well, what are you waiting for? Call her." "I'm not calling her," Liam said firmly. "I'll see her in person." Emma smirked. "Look at you being all old-fashioned, I like it." Liam shook his head, but a small smile tugged at his lips. He couldn't stop thinking about Harper. And something told him he wouldn't be able to stay away for long. The following Saturday, Liam walked into the small bookstore Harper had mentioned during their date. She'd told him she volunteered there on weekends, helping organize events for kids. The bell above the door jingled, and he spotted her near the back, stacking books on a shelf. She looked different today, her hair pulled into a messy bun and a pair of glasses perched on her nose. She wore a simple cardigan over jeans, and yet she looked more beautiful than any woman he'd ever seen in designer couture. "Hey," he said, approaching her. Harper turned, her face lighting up when she saw him. "Liam, what are you doing here?" "I remembered you said you volunteer here," he said, feeling slightly self-conscious. "Thought I'd stop by and see if you needed any help," her smile widened. "Really? That's sweet, but you don't have to, I want to," he interrupted, his tone earnest. "Unless you'd rather I leave." "No, of course not," she said quickly. "I just didn't expect you to show up. Most guys wouldn't." "Well, I'm not most guys," he said with a small grin. Harper laughed, shaking her head. "All right, Mr. Not Most Guys, you can help me sort these donations." For the next hour they worked side by side, sorting through boxes of books. Harper told him about her favorite children's authors, and Liam found himself hanging on her every word. She had a way of making even the simplest things sound fascinating. As they finished the last box, Harper glanced at him, her expression curious. "So, what made you decide to come here today?" Liam hesitated, then shrugged. "I wanted to see you again." "Is that okay?" Harper's cheeks turned pink and she looked down at the book in her hands. "Yeah, that's okay. Good," he said softly. "Because I was hoping you'd let me take you out tonight." "On a real date?" Harper looked up, her eyes meeting his. "You mean like dinner?" "Exactly like dinner," he said with a smile. "Unless you have a better idea." "No, dinner sounds great," she said, her smile shy but genuine. "I'd like that." "Then it's a date," he said, his chest tightening with a strange mix of nerves and excitement. As he left the bookstore, Liam couldn't stop smiling. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. But as much as he wanted to keep things simple, he knew the truth would catch up with him eventually. And when it did, he could only hope Harper wouldn't walk away. The restaurant Liam chose for their dinner date was a cozy Italian spot tucked away on a quiet street. It wasn't one of the high-end establishments he usually frequented, but it had charm, soft lighting, red checkered tablecloths, and the scent of garlic and basil wafting through the air. It was the kind of place that felt personal, intimate. Perfect for Harper. Liam arrived early to make sure everything was set. He wasn't used to feeling nervous, but tonight was different. He wanted Harper to enjoy herself, to feel special. He adjusted the collar of his shirt for the third time, reminding himself to relax. This wasn't a business deal. It was a date with a woman who already liked him, at least the version of him she'd met. The sound of the door opening pulled him out of his thoughts. When Harper walked in, Liam forgot how to breathe for a moment. She wore a simple navy dress that fit her perfectly, her hair loose over her shoulders. She wasn't flashy or overdone, but she didn't need to be. She was stunning. "Hi," she said, her smile lighting up the room as she approached. "Hi," Liam replied, standing to greet her. "You look beautiful," her cheeks flushed. "Thank you, you clean up pretty well yourself," he chuckled, holding out her chair as she sat down. "I try." The waiter appeared, handing them menus and pouring water into their glasses. Harper looked around the restaurant, her eyes softening. "This place is so cute." "How'd you find it?" "A friend recommended it," he lied smoothly, though he'd actually spent hours researching restaurants that would suit the tone he wanted for the evening. "Figured it might be a nice change of pace." "It's perfect," she said, running her fingers along the edge of the menu. "I'm a sucker for a good Italian meal." "Then I think you'll love it," he said, watching her with a small smile. "The lasagna here is supposed to be amazing." Their conversation flowed as easily as it had at the bookstore. Harper told him about her week at school, the chaos of wrangling 20 kindergartners, and the sweet, unexpected moments that made it all worth it. Liam found himself hanging on her every word, laughing at her stories and marveling at how much passion she had for her work. "You talk about those kids like they're your own," he said at one point, leaning forward on his elbows. She shrugged, smiling. "In a way they are. Even if they're only in my class for a year, I want them to feel loved and supported. Some of them don't get that at home." Liam felt a pang in his chest. That's really incredible, Harper. You're making a difference in their lives. I hope so, she said, her voice soft. What about you? Do you like what you do? Liam froze for half a second before recovering. It's fulfilling, he said carefully. I get to help people solve problems, which feels good. Harper nodded, taking a sip of her water. That's important. Life's too short to do something you don't care about. Her words hit Liam harder than they should have. He cared about his work, sure, but the last thing he wanted was for his success to overshadow who he was. For the first time, he wondered if he'd been hiding behind his wealth, using it as a shield to keep people at arm's length. The waiter returned with their food, breaking the moment. Harper's eyes lit up when her plate of pasta was set in front of her, and Liam couldn't help but smile at her enthusiasm. Okay, this looks amazing, she said, twirling some spaghetti onto her fork. If it tastes half as good as it smells, I'm never leaving this place. Liam chuckled, picking up his own fork. Guess I'll have to fight the staff to keep you here. They ate and talked, the hours slipping by unnoticed. Liam found himself opening up more than he expected, sharing stories from his childhood and his love of building things, though he carefully avoided specifics about his career. Harper listened intently, asking questions and laughing in all the right places. She made him feel seen in a way he hadn't experienced in years. By the time they finished dessert, a shared tiramisu, Liam knew he was in trouble. He liked her. Really, genuinely liked her. And the thought of losing her, of her walking away when she learned the truth, gnawed at him. As they stepped outside into the crisp evening air, Harper wrapped her arms around herself. That was so good. Thank you for bringing me here. Thank you for coming, Liam said, his voice soft. I had a great time. Me too, she said, looking up at him. Her eyes sparkled in the light of the street lamp, and for a moment, Liam forgot how to speak. Let me walk you to your car, he said finally, offering his arm. She hesitated, then looped her arm through his. All right, Mr. Gentleman. They strolled down the quiet street, the conversation drifting to lighter topics. When they reached her car, Harper turned to face him, her expression unreadable. Liam, she began, her voice hesitant. Can I ask you something? Of course, he said, his heart pounding. Why did you agree to that blind date? She asked. I mean, you don't seem like the kind of guy who needs help finding someone. Liam hesitated, caught off guard by the question. I guess I wanted something different, he said honestly. Dating hasn't exactly been easy for me. Harper raised an eyebrow. Really? Yeah, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. Sometimes it's hard to know if people like me for who I am or for other reasons. She studied him for a moment, then smiled. Well, for what it's worth, I like you for you. Whoever that is. Liam's breath caught. For a split second, he considered telling her everything about his company, his wealth, the penthouse he lived in. But fear held him back. He didn't want to ruin what they had, not yet. Thanks, he said instead, his voice thick. That means a lot. Harper smiled, stepping closer. Good night, Liam. Good night, Harper, he said, resisting the urge to pull her into his arms. She slipped into her car, and Liam watched as she drove away, his chest tight with emotions he couldn't quite name. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he was falling. And it scared him more than he cared to admit. Liam stood on the balcony of his penthouse, the city stretching out below him in a sea of glittering lights. The crisp night air did little to cool the unease curling in his chest. He swirled the glass of scotch in his hand, the amber liquid catching the light as he replayed Harper's words in his mind. I like you for you. Whoever that is. The problem was, she didn't know who he really was, and the longer he waited to tell her, the harder it would be. But tonight, as he stared at the horizon, he made a decision. Harper deserved the truth. He couldn't keep pretending to be someone else, no matter how much he feared losing her. If she walked away, at least he'd know he'd done the right thing. The next day, Liam found himself standing outside Harper's apartment, a bouquet of wildflowers in hand. He'd picked them up from a small florist on the way, remembering how she'd mentioned her love for simple, cheerful things. He took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Harper opened it a moment later, her face lighting up when she saw him. "Liam, what are you doing here? I had to see you," he said, offering her the flowers. "These are for you." "They're beautiful," she said, her cheeks flushing as she took them. "Thank you, come in." She stepped aside and he entered her small but cozy apartment. It was exactly as he'd imagined it, warm, inviting, and filled with little touches that reflected her personality. A stack of books sat on the coffee table, and a framed drawing that looked like it was made by one of her students hung on the wall. "I wasn't expecting you," she said, setting the flowers in a vase. "Is everything okay?" "Yeah," he said, though his heart was pounding. "But there's something I need to tell you." Harper turned to face him, her brow furrowing slightly. "Okay." "What is it?" Liam hesitated, searching for the right words. He'd rehearsed this moment a dozen times on the way over, but now that he was here, nothing seemed adequate. Finally, he just decided to lay it all out. "Harper, I haven't been completely honest with you," he began. "When we met, I told you I worked at a hardware store." "That wasn't true." She tilted her head, confusion flickering across her face. "What do you mean?" "I don't work at a hardware store," he admitted. I'm the CEO of a tech company. I own it. And I'm not just comfortable, I'm wealthy. Very wealthy." Harper stared at him, her expression unreadable. "How wealthy?" Liam cleared his throat. "I'm a millionaire." Silence hung between them, heavy and tense. Liam braced himself for her reaction, his stomach twisting. "You lied to me," she said finally, her voice quiet but steady. "I didn't mean to hurt you," Liam said quickly. "It wasn't about deceiving you. I've had a hard time knowing if people like me for me or for my money. When Emma set us up, I thought it would be a chance to meet someone without all of that getting in the way. But then I met you, and you were so genuine, so different. I didn't want to ruin it." Harper crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing slightly. "So you pretended to be someone else." "I know it was wrong," he said, stepping closer. "But everything else, all the moments we've shared, everything I've said to you, that was real. I swear." She looked down, her expression conflicted. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I care about you," he said, his voice earnest. "And you deserve the truth. I don't want to keep secrets from you, Harper. I want you to know the real me, not some version I thought you'd prefer." She was quiet for a long moment, and Liam's chest tightened with fear. Then she looked up at him, her eyes searching his. "So all this time you've been pretending to be broke?" she asked. "Not broke," he said, wincing. "Just normal." Harper let out a laugh, surprising him. "You're unbelievable," he blinked. "What?" "I don't know whether to be mad at you or impressed," she said, shaking her head. "Do you have any idea how ridiculous this is?" "I'm sorry," he said, his voice soft. "I didn't mean to hurt you." She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "It's a lot to take in, Liam, but I can't say I'm surprised. There were little things, how you carried yourself, the way you talked about certain things. I guess I just didn't want to believe it. So, what does this mean for us?" he asked, his voice tentative. Harper looked at him, her expression softening. "I don't know, but I do know that I like you, and not because of your money or your success or any of that. I like you for who you are when you're with me." Relief flooded Liam's chest, and he closed the distance between them, taking her hands in his. "I promise, no more secrets, no more pretending. I want to be with you, Harper, just you," she smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. "Then stop overthinking it and just be yourself." Liam laughed, pulling her into his arms. "Deal?" They stood there for a moment, holding each other, and for the first time in weeks, Liam felt like he could finally breathe. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain: he wasn't letting Harper go. 2 months later, Liam stood on the rooftop of a luxury hotel, the city skyline sparkling in the distance. A private table had been set up under a canopy of fairy lights, and soft music played in the background. He adjusted his tie nervously, glancing at the small velvet box in his pocket. When Harper appeared, escorted by the maitre d', Liam's breath caught. She wore a flowing red dress that hugged her in all the right places, her hair cascading over her shoulders. She looked like a dream. "Liam," she said, her eyes wide as she took in the setup. "What is all this?" "It's dinner," he said, smiling. "And something else." He pulled out the chair for her, and she sat down, her expression curious. They shared a meal of her favorite dishes, laughing and talking as they always did. But as dessert was served, Liam stood and took her hand. "Harper," he began, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart, "you've changed my life in ways I never thought possible. You've shown me what it means to love and be loved for who I am, not what I have. And I don't want to spend another day without you." He dropped to one knee, pulling the velvet box from his pocket and opening it to reveal a stunning diamond ring. Harper gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Harper, will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes, and she nodded, her voice trembling. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." Liam slipped the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss as the city lights twinkled around them. In that moment, nothing else mattered. They were together and they were in love, and that was all they needed.